problem is, where do you develop that credibility and that business relationship with one another? So our rule of only one person per profession per chapter gives us the atmosphere to actually develop strong business relationships with one another.
Right.
How can you effectively be teaching somebody how to find you referrals if somebody else is asking for the same thing and telling them, telling the same people why they're better than you or you're better than them? And what happens is people end up just selling.
We got the competitive world for that.
Right,
we don't
exactly.
Need to have it in this small little room.
I think it's one of the mistakes that people make. When we're in business, everything we're doing is selling. We're either selling a product or we're selling ourselves. What we do in B&I is we eliminate both of those.
Right.
We take away the fact you don't have to sell yourself because you're going to be our one person in this chapter. We're going to develop a relationship with you.
Right.
And we talk about the other mistake of selling a product. When it comes to networking, when you're at B&I, you're not there to sell a product. You're not there to sell one another. It's teaching each other how to find referrals for each other, who you're looking for, how do we bring you up in conversation. So,
you can easily make a generalization and say, B&I is good for every business owner.
Mm-hmm.
But you and I don't know, maybe not. But I know that's not necessarily true. Is there anybody that this type of thing wouldn't be good for? So,
sure. I always say that it's not right for everybody.
Right.
But I don't discriminate by profession. That's kind of the difference. It's not right for every single person. It is right for every single profession.
Unless they're in the world's oldest profession, then we probably
right. Yeah, that might not work. That might not work. But the idea is that the difference between B&I and all the other different types of networking you can go out there in one word is commitment.
Right.
It's very easy to set up a Facebook page and not use it. It's very easy to set up a Twitter page and not use it. It's very easy to join, say, the chamber and not show up. B&I is only right for those who are actually committed to not only their own business and wanting to grow through word-of-mouth marketing, but also helping each other. Our philosophy of B&I is giver's gain.
Right.
Meaning, so the more you give, the more you're going to get out of it.
Right.
So we have a weekly meeting instead of a monthly meeting. We track attendance. We want to make sure that people are actually committed to building those relationships. So while it's right for most professions, it's not right for every professional who can't or is not willing to make that extra level of commitment.
One thing that I remember early on in one of the earliest meetings I ever attended was that networking is more about farming and not hunting. Why don't you elaborate on that?
Absolutely. When it comes to networking, the goal is to get referrals, right? Ultimately we want to be able to meet your brothers, your sisters, your customers, your clients, your best friends. But most people take an approach of, okay, I'm going to go to a meeting, I'm going to hand out a bunch of business cards, and then you're just automatically going to give me business now. And so they kind of take the hunting approach. I'm going to just shoot at the crowd and see what sticks. When we talk about farming, it's about cultivating relationships. And that takes work, it takes effort, and the biggest piece, it takes time, which we're not in a society now where people want to give up too much time or invest time, right? We want to now give it to me now. That's why we have our emails and our phones and everything else. So most people will go to networking events, whatever it is, and they'll hand a bunch of business cards, and then they wonder, why didn't I get all these business? Why didn't people do business with me? Well, they don't know you, they don't trust you, they don't understand your business. That all takes time, and just like any other relationship.
Right.
I go to our B&I meetings and I ask people, how many of you are married? 90% of the room's going to raise their hand. They say, great, how many of you got married after your first date?
Right.
And people kind of laugh.
When I speak to groups and I talk about marketing, I say, listen, don't fight human nature.
Right.
If how many people are married? If you would have showed up on the first date and proposed marriage, you wouldn't be married.
Exactly.
Right? Everything takes time, and there's always and I'm a believer that networking definitely needs to be part of an overall marketing plan.
Absolutely.
Whereas it's what Jay Abraham. You ever hear Jay Abraham? Mm-hmm. He talks about the marketing Parthenon. Where you have all these different pillars holding up your business, bringing you new customers, and networking certainly fits in. Probably one or even more. So that was one of the things you want to talk about, the different types of networking out there. Well, you talk about where BNI fits in. Go back to some of the mistakes, because all the way from showing up to a networking event. What's the mindset that has to go into someone who goes either to any networking event, but more importantly, a BNI event?
I think we kind of hit on it with your analogy of somebody who shows up to the first date and proposes marriage. I think that's how most people approach networking.
Right.
They go to an event and they go, all right, where's my next customer or client coming from? And we end up doing that number one sin of we just start selling our products to people and wondering why nobody wants to do business with us. I think the mindset needs to be that you're there to cultivate relationships that over time will develop those referrals that you're looking for. So you have to go in and Dr. Ivan Meisner always says it, and I think it's a great line, when it comes to networking, God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth, and you have to use them proportionally. Most people do it the other way. They go to a networking, and kind of in sales too, why a lot of people fail at sales. They'll go into a networking situation, they'll start a conversation with somebody, and the entire time that other person's talking, they're not listening. They're only thinking about what's the next product I'm going to bring up, what's the next feature I'm going to talk about,
right.
And we end up not cultivating that relationship because we're just running around selling to a bunch of people. We collect a bunch of business cards, so we think that we did a great job networking, but in reality, what are those cards really worth? So I think it starts with your mindset of why are you there?
Right.
Are you there to develop relationships? Don't try to talk to 100 different people if you can't handle trying to develop those relationships. Go in targeted with say, okay, I'm going to find 2 or 3 people that I'm going to cultivate this relationship and work at it. There's a lot of different ways to do that. There's a lot of different networking organizations, and we always teach that you should be doing as many as you have time for.
Right.
The chambers are very, very important. Meet a lot of people, but you got to go in with the right reason.
It's funny because one thing that I also got from BNI was that it's not so much that it's really covert in a way, right. But in a way it's not so overt that you're telling somebody, listen, here's what I can do for you. Here's my product or service. You ready? You want to buy it?
Right.
But you're actually saying, hey, what do you need? Who's your ideal customer that I can maybe find in my contact sphere? And then, here's what I'm looking for. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a really big breakthrough that BNI does definitely, I think, give people a big shift in mindset.
Right.
Have you seen a lot? You get a lot of feedback from members where they've gotten that shift in their mindset about networking?
Absolutely, and it's usually not right away. I mean, a lot of people join BNI for the same reason they join all the other networking organizations, right. And they approach it a little different. Where we see the biggest shift and what's our biggest strength is when they go to trainings. Right. When we sit down, we take our members outside their meeting, they go through a 3-hour training, they go through multiple trainings, and we teach them, okay, here's really how the networking's supposed to work, here's how you're supposed to introduce yourselves, here's how you're supposed to talk about each other. And that's when the light bulb goes off,
right?
Where they start seeing that shift. So.
Yeah, it's definitely a powerful event. When we come back, we're going to talk to Tim about we certainly love to get your experience in managing 80 chapters and how you do that. We also have some some current events we need to talk about, and if you want to comment on them, you're welcome. But we'll be right back here on Mike D's Mobilizational Mondays here with Tim Roberts of Business Network International. We'll be right back.
Let me shut it off.
Oh, please, yeah.